Welcome back to Gibbo MMA, and we are going to preview Canelo Alvarez versus Terence "Bud" Crawford in this boxing super fight. This is promoted by the one and only UFC president Dana White, co-promoted with Turkey El Sheikh, right a season. This is Zuffa Boxing's first major event, and I think back to what has been the biggest boxing event in the past 10 plus years or so in the 21st century. And I gotta say, let's say the past 5 years, there hasn't been many big super fights in boxing, many big must watch boxing fights. Ones that come to mind was when Tyson Fury came back onto the scene. We had him versus Deontay Wilder in that draw when he got knocked down, back up. So the Tyson Fury trilogy, then you got the Usyk Fury, Tyson Fury, and Francis Ngannou. So yeah, it's been quite a while in professional boxing outside of Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, sort of influencer type events. We've seen a really hyped up boxing fight between two professional fighters who are the best of the best, pound for pound, the best of the best in their divisions. And that's what we are getting. And this fight is very much moving the needle. The last time a professional boxing fight I felt moved the needle this much and had a lot of the casuals getting involved and aware of it was, you know, Tyson Fury definitely did that a bit, and before Conor and Mayweather, I'd say it was the Pacquiao Mayweather fight back in, it was like 2014 or something. Like, when your parents know about a fight, you know it's a big one. And yeah, this fight is obviously getting the UFC fan base involved. Like, there's trailers and previews on UFC Fight Pass. And we never thought we'd see Dana White be promoting such a big event in boxing. So we have come a long way in MMA to see the UFC president now promoting a boxing fight. And the fight I'm previewing, which is silhouetted behind me, Canelo Alvarez versus Terence "Bud" Crawford. Let's get into what this fight is, what's on the line. We have the undisputed super middleweight world title, which is at 168 pounds. So at UFC, it's pretty much a welterweight, so they call it super middleweight. And Canelo Alvarez is the undisputed champ, and Bud Crawford is coming up from the 154-pound division. So two weight classes he's going up for this bout. So essentially, it's like a featherweight jumping up to welterweight. So like a Topuria jumping straight up and fighting JDM. That's essentially sort of what we're dealing with as far as the weight class jump ups. But as far as like name value, legacy, I found it hard to compare with anyone in the UFC, this kind of matchup with jumping up weight class, with this amount of stuff on the line. Like, Terence "Bud" Crawford is 41-0. Canelo Alvarez, he's 63-2. Only two losses. His first loss came by Floyd Mayweather back in 2013, his first ever professional loss. And then his second one came when he moved up to light heavyweight and faced Dimitri Bivol, and he lost that by decision. And I couldn't really compare it to anyone in the UFC as far as like legacy and an undefeated record and all the belts on the line. The only thing I could think of as far as like fighting at this sort of weight class and the jump up was when Conor fought Nate Diaz at welterweight. Nate Diaz obviously was a lightweight, then welterweight, but he was definitely much bigger than Conor. And we saw that one in the first one. Conor got submitted in round 2, and then he won by decision. Conor did in the second bout. And so, like, this bout is pretty much two grandmasters stepping in the ring. Like, these guys are the highest of the highest level in boxing. And I'm not going to sit here and give too many X's and O's. This is just way out of my depth as far as to break down jabs and, Bud Crawford switch stancing is a natural. He's a southpaw dominant, left hand dominant, but he can switch to orthodox like a flip of a coin. But I'm not going to really get down the nitty gritty X's and O's because boxing is just so high. This is just such a high level fight. I'm out of my depth in that sense. But what I will do is preview, the storylines coming into this, give you a great outline. Like if you don't watch boxing or you're sort of familiar, I'm going to just give you sort of what is on the line, why this is so important, and it's free on Netflix. So there's, you're not wasting your time really. It's free on Netflix. It's an easy watch. Outside of like the co-main, Callum Walsh, he's probably the tune into. But this fight, low investment to watch this, but high value in the sense of a boxing match. And this is held at Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium. They're looking up to get around 70,000 people. And I was looking at the ticket prices for this. Nosebleed sections was like minimum $400 plus. And then the floor seats, geez. I wonder how many private jets are flying into Las Vegas on Saturday there. There's going to be hundreds because the minimum cost for a floor seat was around $3,000. $3,000. And the highest ticket price I saw that I could select was $23,000. So I'm guessing those are ringside tickets. So obviously there's going to be some high profile people there with money in their pockets able to afford that. But when I compare it to when I went to UFC Paris last year, it was $450 for mid-tier seats for a fight night. So to get nosebleeds, it is a stadium, so you're going to be even further away. For this magnitude of a fight, $400 is, I think that's not too much of a rip-off. Because you rarely see these big super fights, and I think the fans are going to get their money's worth. And if this was a pay-per-view, well, we're just in a different era now where people can just illegally stream stuff. That's why UFC are going away from it in the US market. Is obviously still remaining in Australia, the pay-per-view model. But with that Paramount Plus deal, they just know, and boxing, they're going to the Zone and stuff. Pay-per-view model just isn't viable to make money. Like Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather is the highest selling pay-per-view event of all time, then McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. And that was a time still when people weren't able to necessarily, people were still, but people were just in the habit of buying pay-per-views. But with all of the technology now and streaming services and hacks, I can see why this is on Netflix. And what a great buy by Netflix. The more people you can reach, the better. And putting it, obviously you got to have a Netflix subscription, which is around $15, $16 a month. But you're not paying $80 or whatever to buy this fight. And so, yeah, like Dana White promoting this fight, like this is just crazy as far as like on bingo cards when you look back 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and the way he talked about boxing and the way, because he loves boxing and he always talks about how shit it was produced in the events, how slow they are, how you never get to see the fights you want to see. So that's why the UFC is the kind of the way it is. So it's going to be interesting, the Dana White boxing era in promoting events, how it will look. And yeah, so let's get into firstly Canelo Alvarez. Let's go through his records a little bit. Let's get a quick little background. He's from Mexico, Guadalajara. This fight is taking place over the Mexican Independence Day weekend. in celebration of the Mexican Independence Day from I think it's the Spanish. I'm not too caught up on it, but yeah, he's been dominant at 168 pounds, a super middleweight division. He's undisputed champ. He moved up to 175 against Bivol, as mentioned. So he moved up 7 pounds, and yeah, it was just too small. Bivol is just that Russian technician, so technical, and just got outboxed. Didn't get beat up too much. Like, it wasn't fairly dominant damage. It's just outboxed and just didn't really have answers. He looked frustrated in there. But yeah, Canelo, he's been pretty active throughout his career. Usually you got like, which we'll get into Crawford, once a year fighter, but Canelo, he's maintained 2 fights a year essentially for at his peak. He's been fighting like 2 fights a year for over a decade or something now. And his last fight was against William Skull early this year in May. He won by decision. And he's had like most famous sort of victories was Triple G in a trilogy. First one was a draw. Then he got majority decisions. And the third one was a unanimous decision over Triple G. And then so his only losses are to Bivol, Mayweather. With the Mayweather one, he was 23 years old, Canelo Alvarez. So Mayweather was like, very much, I got to kind of fight him now before he gets too good, because he was still developing Canelo Alvarez. Even when he turned pro when he was 15 because he couldn't get amateur fights in Mexico. So like, no one wanted to fight him as a teenager, so he had to turn pro to get fights. And he got his first belt against his name. It was, the thing about boxing is there's just so many belts, and it's like, how do you pinpoint which was his first belt? Matthew Hatton was that first one back in 2011. So he got his WBC World Super Welterweight title, which is 154 pounds, back in 2011. But yeah, he fought Floyd when he was just 23 years old. Floyd was like 35 at the time, early 30s, and just put a masterclass. Like, I like to use the word grandmaster in boxing, because he's, the technical high level skill translates to the old days. Like, when you think of boxers back in the day, Muhammad Ali, Robert Duran, Marvin Hagler, all those guys translate to these day and age and are better. Like Tyson Fury against, the old heavyweights, those old heavyweights could come in and kick his butt. Like, it translates, which is like so great about boxing. And that's why I use Grandmaster, because like chess can translate to the old days as far as like who's better than who. Like, there hasn't been super development in the game and skill, whereas like MMA, not everyone knew how to do jiu-jitsu. So like, when you see the jiu-jitsu guys come in, they start dominating, and everyone caught on, and it's still developing today as far as skill level and game plans and mixing it up. Whereas like boxing's been around for so long that you can kind of compare and translate into errors. And Floyd Mayweather is a grandmaster in boxing. And at the time when he fought Canelo was, I don't know, he was just below a grandmaster still. He was still on the way up. He was still getting his skills developed and becoming that grandmaster. So he was just still on that lower level. He had youth on his side, but Mayweather, they did it at a lower weight, so Canelo had to cut down, and Mayweather just schooled him. And it was kind of if you're going to lose to someone, Mayweather's not too bad. And that loss was probably the best thing for his career, because say he didn't verse Mayweather ever and just kept going on, he could have got caught later on more viciously. So that was back in 2013, and he didn't lose for 9 years, until 2022. So yeah, 9 years essentially, or 10 years. He went on an unbeaten streak. He did get a draw against Triple G in the first one. But yeah, Canelo Alvarez is just an absolute beast. I was watching the sort of embedded previews. It's on Netflix. They got like preview episodes, really well produced. And talk about boxing money. Canelo just walked into this luxury watch shop and dropped like 3 mil in the space of 10 seconds. He's like, oh, what's this one? How much? Oh, this is cool. Bang. What's this one? How much? Oh, this is 1.2 million. He looks at his guy and he's like, yeah, we're going to have to get this one too. And he just dropped 3 mil on like, it was like 3 watches he got or something. And bang. And that's boxing money. And he's been fighting twice a year for quite some time now, keeping the money coming in. And people, Tequila Sheik, Rider Season, has put up the money for this fight. And there's a bit of controversy and also like, Canelo, versing a smaller guy and just doing it for the money or whatever. But if you're in this sport, in the fighting game, this is what you dream about. This is the kind of fight you dream about. Getting promoted worldwide, getting all this money. Because people are fighting in little gyms, doing the same output, getting more damage for a whole lot less, for pennies on the dollar. So the aim is to be able to, fight, but get the most amount and monetize the most in your career. So these guys are doing that right now. And, if Canelo wins, it's like, oh, you versus the smaller guy, blah, blah, blah. But, Crawford's a different guy. And if Crawford wins, well, like, oh, he moved up and that just, moves him to 42-0 and cements him as one of the best of all time. But as far as like controversy around, Tequila Sheik, what's his business practices or whatever, but if you're a boxer, you've got to look after yourself because no one else will. And these are the fights you dream about. And this is what's happening. And let's go to Crawford. Crawford, 41-0. His best performances are at 147. So essentially at featherweight, his best performances are. And he moved up to 154 and he's been fighting once a year for the past 5 or so years. Since 2020, essentially, he's been fighting once a year. And, he's been finishing blokes though. He's been finishing blokes, that fight against Midrimov when he moved up to 154 was a kind of a close fight. He won on the scorecards decision. It's a very tough opponent in Midrimov. I thought Midrimov won when I first watched it. I watched it back today and I was like, yeah, he won. I thought it was should have been closer on the scorecards, but they kind of blew it out a bit. But I believe, like, I do think he won, but I didn't think he won by that much on the scorecards. But I didn't realize, I thought boxing was just 8-ounce gloves and then you go to heavyweight where they're at like 12 ounce or something. But the gloves they're using for this 168-pound fight are 10-ounce gloves. And I believe his 154-pound fight was 10-ounce gloves. Where I'd say he'd be used to those 8-ounce gloves where they're a bit lighter. His hand speed can be electric. And now that he's going to be heavier, he's been waiting. It's been a year since he's fought, so he's had time to naturally put on the weight and let his cardio build up with it. But I just think, with these heavier gloves, I think UFC 4-ounce, and then they're doubled when it gets to boxing and the lighter weights. And then now as the weight classes go up, the boxing ounces go up too. So 10-ounce gloves for a lighter guy moving up who'd be used to those lighter gloves, obviously sparring and pad work, they're using 10 to 16-ounce gloves. But I just wonder how his hand speed's going to translate, and as well as the power, because when I get into my bold prediction and path to victories, I'm not worried for Canelo getting knocked out. I'm more worried for Crawford getting knocked out. And can Crawford knock Canelo out? And I just don't think so. don't see really any, I don't see any much trouble on Canelo's end to be worried about getting knocked out. Obviously, if you're going to be stupid and have your hands down, chin up, you will. But the way Canelo fights and how good he is, I just don't see a way Crawford can knock him out. Because he's been knocking guys out at 147, no problem. Sean Porter, Errol Spence Jr., Amir Khan. Like, he's just, he fought Australia's own Jeff Horn, who, when Jeff Horn fought Manny Pacquiao in Brisbane, Australia, he got the decision win. He went over and fought Crawford, got finished in the 9th round. Just, you could just see the levels to this game. That's what I like about boxing, is you can really see, because it's more one-dimensional in the craft, in the game of box. It's not a game, but because you're just using hands, you can really get a gauge of the levels. And that's what Crawford is. Like, he is at the highest of the highest. Like, Errol Spence Jr., everyone was like, this guy's the danger guy. He's going to put Crawford in trouble. Crawford made him look like an amateur. And it just showed you levels. Whereas MMA, with the stylistic matchups, you got grapplers, wrestlers versus strikers, jiu-jitsu guys, kickboxers. You just get styles and so many factors that play into it, whereas sometimes you're like, where is the level? Who is the high level? Shit just happens with MMA. Like, you can go for a takedown and bang, bust your freaking knee open or pop a shoulder out. I don't know, TJ Dillashaw against Aljo. Like, sometimes it's hard to gauge the level because there's so many things to worry about. And whereas boxing, there's only one thing to pinpoint. And that's where I say, these are Grandmasters, because you can see when, he fought Errol Spence, Bud Crawford, he just showed the Grandmaster level. So, yeah, and like, being 13 months out, like, how will his timing be, being a bigger guy? But he's been fighting once a year for like 5 years now, so I'm not too worried about the timing, I guess. The only thing would be just being more heavier. How is foot movement going to be? Is he going to switch stance at all? Because he's known as probably the greatest switch dancer of all time. And yeah, just so many questions to be asked in this fight. And that's, when you get that, that's what's so great. And when this first got announced, a lot of people were saying, what's Crawford doing? He's too small. Canelo's just going to wipe the floor with him. And then as it's slowly been building, you look into it more, who Bud Crawford is, and it's like, let's look at the odds for this. Canelo Alvarez, $1.62. Bud Crawford, $2.45. And yeah, just make sure that's still turned on. So $1.62 for Canelo, the favorite. Bud Crawford, $2.45. So I don't know what the opening line was, but I'd say Crawford's come in quite a bit, because, I've been talking to the experts, Andre Ward, been listening to these guys, and it's just like, people are giving Crawford a chance here. They're pretty, people are picking Crawford in this. It's becoming quite split down the middle. Listening to other fighters talk about this bout and who will win. And I like both guys. I really like Crawford. I like his style. And when he versed Sean Porter, it was the 10th round. Going into the 10th round, someone said to him, like, you're down on the scorecards. And like, if you watch it him after the 9th round in the corner with his coaches, he's like, I'm down. He's up. Like, he's up. Walks in there and gets the finish. Dropped him twice. The towel got thrown in. And yeah, like, it just shows this guy can just turn it on. But can he turn it on against a guy like Canelo Alvarez? The guy is thick and dense, quick, sharp, just brutal power. And obviously, and the last thing that goes is power, which is on Crawford's side, because Crawford, he's 37 years old. Canelo, 35. So these, I think if Canelo wins this, he might go out and go out on a whim, or Crawford go out on a whim, 42-0. And yeah, it's just with who people are picking and with the odds, I was initially like, I want Crawford to win, but then like watching it and objectively when I cut out like who I want to win, I'm picking Canelo to win in this fight. Yeah. And if you're picking Crawford, I can very much agree with you. But when I started justifying this and who will win path to victories, I had to go with Canelo. And here's why. Path to victory for Canelo. He can walk him down. He can put more damage on him, being the bigger guy. And he can get the finish. So when you put method of victory, who can win via knockout? It's Canelo Alvarez. Canelo is the only guy in this fight that can win by knockout. I don't think Bud Crawford can knock out Canelo Alvarez. And with path to victories for Canelo, he can do that for 12 rounds and just slowly sort of bully Bud Crawford. If they were at the same natural weight, I'd say I'd have Bud winning. Probably it's hard, but just because of the weight difference here, you saw Canelo move up only 6 pounds or something, and he just got outworked and out sort of muscled. And I think he's going to out muscle Bud Crawford here. I think Bud Crawford's not going to be as elusive and quick moving up. He's going to have to pace himself a lot more, whereas Canelo, he's used to this weight and he's just going to keep sort of marching forward smartly. Bud, one of the best, probably the best counter puncher boxer. But I think he's going to get overwhelmed in this fight. I think Alvarez is going to overwhelm him. Just constant pressure, jab, high guard, and just constantly marching him backwards. I think Bud is going to be on the back foot a lot on this fight. He's going to struggle to get going with his jab. And that's why I had Canelo winning. Because when I look at path to victories for Crawford, the only way I see him winning is via decision. And to win via decision, he's going to have to take the blueprint, but it's hard because it was over 10, 12 years ago again when Mayweather beat him, but he's going to have to put on a Mayweather type performance. He's going to have to go deep into that Mayweather-esque performance and, pull the cat out of the bag and, execute that in the ring. And can he do that? I don't think so. I would love to see it. Like, that would be insane. If he went in there and outboxed, outpointed, and schooled Canelo Alvarez, could go down as one of the greatest victories in boxing history, especially at this level and at this skill. That if he goes in there and outboxes Canelo Alvarez like Mayweather did to him at this stage of Canelo Alvarez's career, it could go down as one of the greatest boxing victories of all time. And that's the only path to victory I see for Crawford. I don't see him knocking out Alvarez. He's too sharp. He's got a great chin. And the only way I can see him is just winning like a split decision, just outpointing him. Yeah, he's going to have to look at what Bivol did, but Bivol's a bigger guy than Canelo. So, because I'd like Crawford to win very much, but when I put on the unbiased and gun to my head, who you picking, to say, your life's on the line, who you picking, and that's Canelo Alvarez. For those reasons is he can knock out Crawford and Crawford can't knock out him, and Canelo can very much win by decision because he's been doing that for the past few years now. Like his last knockout win, Canelo, was against Caleb Plant in 2021, and that was a crazy year for Canelo. He went on an absolute tear. He finished a Vinny, then Billy Joe Saunders broke Billy's face, and then finished Caleb Plant in the 11th round. So in 2021, that year was insane for Canelo. And then he went and moved up and fought Dimitri and then lost. And then he hasn't lost since. So it has been a while since Canelo's knocked someone out, but he's versing a smaller guy here. And and that's my prediction, Canelo via knockout. And, so I'm going to stand by it. Comment your predictions. Comment if I'm insane. I was initially going to pick Crawford before I did all this research and watched back fights and looking at history of people moving up, but because I like Crawford, I like his style, the way he fights, I like what he's about. He's from Nebraska, Omaha, hasn't left his city, puts it on his back, represents well. But Canelo, Canelo Alvarez, what's more else to say? So that's why I got him winning by knockout. So let me know your predictions. What round do I think? I think it's going to be those, round 9, 10, 11, 12, those later rounds when he's tired. He's going to push an extreme pace, and I think he's going to, fatigue. When you're exhausted and fatigued, it makes you look like an amateur. And that's where I can see Canelo doing to Crawford. But, Crawford's got great cardio. So that's why this is such a great fight. Is so many questions. Like, I could be completely wrong here, which that's okay. Like, who am I to be super confident in this? But if I am to choose Canelo via knockout, let's go round 10. And yeah, so let me know your predictions. I got UFC Noche preview to do as well, but I was going to do it all in one episode, but I needed to separate these. I could just keep going on and on because these guys have been around for 15 plus years in the sport. There's so many fights they've been in, but got to keep it simple, keep it as short as possible. So UFC Noche preview I'll do tomorrow and upload, but yeah, so let me know your thoughts on this boxing bout, who you got winning, method of victory, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the UFC Noche preview, and I will be doing a review on this well, so be sure to comment. Appreciate the support, whether it be 1 million or 1. I see you, and I'll see you in the next episode. Catch you later.